Long ago, in the land of Canaan, there lived a young man named Joseph. He was 17 years old, strong and handsome, with bright eyes full of hope. Joseph was the son of Jacob, and Jacob loved him deeply. In fact, Joseph was his father's favorite. One day, Jacob gave Joseph a special gift, a beautiful robe. It was long, colorful, and unlike anything his brothers owned. When Joseph walked through the fields wearing it, the colors shone in the sunlight like a rainbow. But his brothers didn't smile. They frowned. They whispered behind his back. You see, they were jealous. They felt their father loved Joseph more than them. And then came the dreams. Joseph told his brothers, "Listen, I had a dream. We were binding sheaves of grain in the field, and my sheaf stood upright, while your sheaves gathered around it and bowed down to mine." His brothers glared at him. "Are you really saying you'll rule over us?" Another time, Joseph said, "I had another dream. The sun, the moon, and 11 stars bowed down to me." Even Jacob, his father, was puzzled. "What is this dream? Shall your mother, your brothers, and I bow before you?" But in Jacob's heart, he wondered, could God be speaking through Joseph's dreams? The brothers, however, burned with anger. Their jealousy grew like a storm ready to break. One day, Jacob sent Joseph to check on his brothers in the fields. As Joseph walked toward them in his colorful robe, they saw him coming. "Here comes the dreamer," one sneered. "Let's kill him and see what becomes of his dreams," said another. But Reuben, the oldest, tried to protect him. "Don't kill him. Just throw him into this empty pit." He secretly planned to rescue Joseph later. The brothers stripped off Joseph's robe and threw him into a dry, empty well. His cries echoed in the darkness. Then, as they sat down to eat, they saw traders passing by on their way to Egypt. Judah said, "Why kill him? Let's sell him instead." And so, for 20 pieces of silver, they sold their own brother. Joseph was led away in chains, tears streaming down his face. Back home, the brothers dipped Joseph's robe in goat's blood and brought it to their father. Jacob wept bitterly. "My son is gone, my Joseph is gone." In Egypt, Joseph was sold to Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh. But even in slavery, Joseph worked with honesty and faithfulness. God was with him, and soon Potiphar trusted Joseph to manage his entire household. But trouble came. Potiphar's wife began to notice Joseph. Day after day, she tried to tempt him. But Joseph said, "How could I do such a wicked thing and sin against God?" One day, when no one else was around, she grabbed his cloak. Joseph fled, leaving it behind. Angrily, she lied to her husband. "This Hebrew tried to attack me." Potiphar believed her and threw Joseph into prison. Even in prison, God was with Joseph. The jailer soon put Joseph in charge of the other prisoners. One night, Pharaoh's cupbearer and baker each had troubling dreams. Joseph said, "Interpretations belong to God. Tell me your dreams." To the cupbearer he said, "In 3 days, Pharaoh will restore you." To the baker he said, "In 3 days, Pharaoh will take your life." And just as Joseph said, it happened. Joseph pleaded with the cupbearer, "Remember me when you are free." But the man forgot. 2 years passed. Joseph remained in prison, until one night Pharaoh himself had 2 strange dreams. No wise man in Egypt could explain them. Then the cupbearer remembered Joseph. Pharaoh called for him. Joseph stood before the most powerful man in the world. Pharaoh said, "I hear you can interpret dreams." Joseph answered, "I cannot, but God will give Pharaoh the answer." Pharaoh explained, 7 fat cows eaten by 7 thin cows, 7 full heads of grain swallowed by 7 thin heads. Joseph said, "God has revealed the future. 7 years of plenty, then 7 years of famine. Pharaoh should appoint a wise man to store food during the good years." Pharaoh was amazed. "Can we find anyone like this man, one in whom is the Spirit of God?" And just like that, Joseph was lifted from prison to palace. Pharaoh made him second in command over all Egypt, clothed him in fine linen, and placed a gold chain around his neck. For 7 years, Joseph stored grain across Egypt. Then the famine came. It was severe, and people from all lands traveled to Egypt to buy food. One day, 10 men bowed before Joseph. They were his brothers, though they didn't recognize him. Joseph's heart pounded. The dreams from his youth, they were coming true. He tested them to see if they had changed. He accused them of being spies, demanded they bring Benjamin, the youngest brother. When they returned with Benjamin, Joseph could no longer hold back. Tears streamed down his face. He sent the Egyptians out of the room and cried, "I am Joseph. Is my father still alive?" His brothers were stunned, afraid. But Joseph stepped forward and said, Do not be afraid. You meant evil against me, but God meant it for good, to save many lives." And Joseph forgave them. Joseph brought his whole family to Egypt. His father Jacob wept with joy to see his long-lost son alive. Together, they settled in the land and were saved from the famine. Years later, after Jacob died, the brothers still feared Joseph might punish them. But Joseph reassured them once again, "Do not fear. I will provide for you and your children." He comforted them with kindness. Joseph's story teaches us a powerful truth. Even when life seems unfair, even when others hurt us, God is still working for good. Joseph was betrayed, enslaved, and forgotten. Yet in the end, God lifted him up and used his life to save many. When we face trials, we can remember Joseph's words, "You meant evil against me, but God meant it for good." So let us trust God in every season, knowing that He can turn suffering into blessing when we remain faithful to Him. The end.